thoughts on just this week of football casino while I look up for things.
It was much more entertaining than we thought it was going to be. We had just the one marquee signature or circled, which was last night's Chargers versus Ravens, which was a good game. It came down. You had the Harbaugh brothers going at it. Which man, do they hate playing each other? Like I honestly would hate going in and being like, hey bro, this is our livelihoods and one of us can get into a lot of trouble with our organization if we lose. um
Yeah,
but I think that was a good bounce back win for the Ravens last night for that marquee game. um it was a must. It was a must to honestly still be relevant. I think the Chargers are the best team in the league that's not going to make the Super Bowl, that doesn't have a chance to make the Super Bowl. They
that's
are
that's a good
they're
take.
and
Yeah.
you know what? I'm gonna give credit where credit's due. Colin Coward said that, and like as soon as he said it, I'm just like, that is so spot on. That nobody expects this team to make the Super Bowl, but out of all the other teams above them, you expect them to have a chance to make the Super Bowl, even including the Steelers. But so I think the Chargers, as Colin said, they are the best team that is just not going to make the Super Bowl. And which is great, though. That's a great improvement from where they were last year, for the past 3 years with Justin Herbert or whatever, 2 years with Herbert, three, whatever it is. But, he's finally very, very, that organization has got the right coach. They got the guy in line. Now you give him this next offseason to really get some pieces in. Now he knows where, hey, we're struggling here. This is where we need to improve. I can work this in the offseason. The Chargers, I think next year are going to be an absolute force because I think Harbaugh is going to go in there and really fine tune all the pieces he needs.
Yeah. I think what is it? Herbert after last night's game, 2400 yards, 13 touchdowns, one interception. So if he had like 20 touchdowns right now and one interception, I feel like he would be almost a unanimous MVP.
Yeah.
Right? If he was doing that kind of, that's basically why Rodgers won all his MVPs, was just the touchdown to interception ratio
Yeah.
was crazy. You can say that also about the Mahomes year. He won MVP, the Tom Brady year. It always comes down to how many touchdowns versus interceptions. So I don't think he has enough touchdowns where it becomes like this is clear MVP caliber, but still, what he's doing is impressive. And again, when you watch the Chargers play, even in a loss, they look good. They look like they can hang with anybody, and then they kind of just
Yeah.
lose.
I
Like
mean, they literally their best wide receiver, their number one. I'm
Donkey,
looking. Yeah, it's Lad McConkey. Like,
great
get
name.
him, get him some good pieces there. I mean, Dobbins is playing really good right now. But you get him some pieces in on the receiving game. He's gonna be good.
Yeah, I think again, when you look at the Chargers just on paper and then you watch them play the game, it's not that they're not really good at anything. They're just a very well coached team.
Yeah,
Like obviously
and
Herbert,
that's why I think they're gonna be good starting next year. Is because I think Harbaugh is gonna now he knows what he needs. He knows the missing pieces to the puzzle, and he's gonna go out and get them.
yeah, I think what is it? This team right now is 7-4. Their remaining schedule is, I mean, a murderer's row of
Yeah,
schedule. They play Falcons, Chiefs, Bucks, Broncos the next month. So the next month they basically have to win all four or they have to split those games. They have to go at minimum 2-2 and then win their last two gimmies, which are against your team, the Patriots, and then the Raiders. So they have a month where they have to beat the Falcons, which I think they will beat. And then they have to beat the Chiefs, the Bucks, or the Broncos. I think they will beat the Broncos. I think they're a better team than the Broncos, but I think they will beat the Broncos. But the only issue with that game is it's on a Thursday, as we just saw from this Thursday night's game, where it was a snow game. I mean, those in division games on Thursday nights, they're always weird. They never go how you think they will. So, yeah. And then as far as the Ravens go, I mean, the Ravens are 8-4 right now. Obviously started 2-2 or started 0-3, I believe. Then they lost what is it? Then they lost to I'm pulling up their schedule right now. So they started, yes, started 2-2, rattled off a bunch of wins, and then lost a weird one to Cleveland in week 8. And then lost to the Steelers and now beat the Chargers. So after losing to the Steelers last week, I mean, we even from our power rankings, you could tell kind of lost a lot of, I don't even want to say respect, but I guess just a lot of just football trust in the Ravens, who scored
Totally.
16 points against a division rival. But again, when we dove into that game, it's really only Lamar Jackson has bad games against the Steelers. That's the only team in the entire league he has bad games against. Like,
Yeah, the Steelers have always owned the Ravens, like, for the last 10 years.
yeah, especially when it comes to Lamar Jackson. I think he's only beat him once, but again, he hasn't beat the Chiefs, but he still puts up good numbers and has good games against the Chiefs. The Steelers are the one team he doesn't put up good numbers against, and he doesn't beat them. So as long as they don't face the Steelers in the playoffs, I mean, the sky's the limit for this team. And we're going to see maybe the marqueest of marquee games next week, which is Eagles and Ravens, which I think will be great. And that'll also be a telling point for both those teams. But I mean, Ravens at 8-4, again, much like the Bills, it kind of doesn't matter what they do in the regular season. And I'm kind of just waiting to see what they do in the
We're
playoffs.
all waiting to see what Lamar can do. I mean, he has 2 playoff wins in his career, which is just insane to think about.
I know.
Lamar Jackson has
Yeah.
2 playoff wins in his career.
Potentially a 3-time MVP. If he wins the MVP this year and then also gets bounced in the playoffs early, like, then we need to start having real conversations about like what the MVP means and all that kind of stuff. Because right now, I mean, his numbers are insanity. Last year, he finished the year with 27 passing touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 821 yards rushing, and 5 touchdowns. This year already, with about a month and a half left in the season, he has 27 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So he has 4 less touchdowns than he finished last year, and then 3 more touchdowns already with what he finished last year. He's already at 600 yards rushing and then has 3 rushing touchdowns. So he has better stats than the years he's
Yeah, and the only reason he's not running as much is because he's got Henry.
yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, his attempts again last year he finished with 821 yards on 50 less rushing attempts than he has
Yeah,
right now
and
currently.
I have Josh Allen as the one, but I think him not getting those last goal line touchdowns that he normally would get hurt his MVP chances this year. But I also think, as you talked about Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is getting all those 2-yard touchdowns when Barkley got them all the way there. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah,
It is weird how often Eagles running backs and receivers are stopped at the 1. It's weird.
yeah. I
It
mean, because right
happens
now
all the
Barkley's
time.
probably got about ten touchdowns taken away from him, right at the goal line, whether they're either to Jalen Hurts or if they're to a little pass out play or whatever. But
Yeah.
you know, easily could have 9, 10 more touchdowns for Saquon. And then at that point, you got to be like, he has to be the front runner. But
Well, you're talking about a casino. Since we just talked about Monday, let's move to Sunday night's game, which was Eagles at the Rams. A game for
I
some
told
reason
you the Rams always, man, they play tough.
they play tough and they still lost by 17.
Well, I
Technically,
mean,
they
it,
lost
it was it
by
was a good first half.
also they scored a garbage time touchdown in the fourth quarter. So really this game should have been 37-14. Like it wasn't this game wasn't even close. But really why it wasn't close is because Saquon Barkley broke the single season rushing record for an Eagles player in Eagles team history, going 26 carries, 255 yards, and
Wow.
touchdowns.
And
Just
you know what? It was close at halftime. It was only 13-7. So me.
yeah, but it
But
didn't feel like 13-7.
yeah, but it's
Again,
still 13-7. And then and then it was an absolute just domination second half. Barkley, what Barkley was doing, every time I looked up, it just seemed like Barkley was running for like 50 yards. And I was like, oh, he's doing it again. He's
yeah.
doing it again. And then towards the end of the game, I legitimately had to like turn to my coworker. I was like, I gotta go step aside. I gotta pull up what he's like his stats right now.
Yeah.
And I have to.
So yeah, there was the one touchdown to start after halftime. The Eagles might be, I don't know what team is in contention for the team that after they come out of halftime, just all of a sudden flip a switch and they're on. Because the second they come out of halftime, all of a sudden Barkley within 5 minutes of the quarter starting, no, within 10 seconds of the quarter starting, he just rips off a 70-yard touchdown run. And then after that, it was 7 more points and then 10 points in the fourth quarter. And they just kind of pulled away almost immediately after halftime. So, yeah, I text you this, Casino. In all my years of watching Eagles football, this legitimately might be, and I don't even think it's up for debate. I think this is the best Eagles team I've seen since I started watching football in 1998. And that includes all those Andy Reid teams that went to the Super Bowl, or that went to the Super Bowl in 2004 against your team. That includes the Carson Wentz year where Foles ends up winning the Super Bowl. That includes the year they
Yeah.
went that
Sorry.
includes the year they went to the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, because again, they have the best player at a specific position. They didn't have that when they won the Super Bowl. They didn't have that against the your Patriots the first time in 2004, and they didn't have that 2 years ago when they played the Chiefs. When they played the Chiefs, the number one question mark was, how is this defense going to stop Mahomes? They never stopped Mahomes. The Chiefs scored every drive, and then they lost literally because their defense couldn't even force a field goal, right? The year they won the Super Bowl against the Patriots, it was also, how is that defense going to stop Tom Brady? They didn't.
They
They
didn't.
they didn't. They
That's
just
that blew my mind. That's probably the best quarterback performance in a Super Bowl for a losing player. Like it was just it was insane.
besides Hurts' performance against Mahomes 2 years ago.
No, I
That
don't know.
was
I
no
think Tom
st-
Brady.
no
No,
statistically, he had the highest rated
yeah, believe what you
quarterback.
want to believe.
Yeah. But now, what makes this Eagles team different than all those other Eagle teams I'm talking about is right now their defense is the number one defense in the league. And again, they're playing high powered offenses and giving those high powered offenses and quarterbacks their worst games on the season. Like,
Yeah.
again, who
If it ended up Eagles Chiefs again, I think it's Eagles all day because Mahomes is having an off year and the Eagles defense is 10 times better. And I got to go get my son. He just woke up.
yeah. But so Eagles this year, number one in total defense. They've only allowed 18 touchdowns on the season. Oh, the only two teams similar to that are Chargers, who have allowed 15, Broncos, who have allowed 18, and then Lions, who have allowed 17. So every other team has allowed at least 20 touchdowns or more, except those four teams I just mentioned. So they don't give up touchdowns. Passing defense, they're only allowing 173 yards per game and only 9 passing touchdowns allowed, right? So besides, it looks like the Bears and the Jets, they've allowed the least amount of passing touchdowns against them in the entire league. Rushing defense, they are number 7th in the league and allowing less than 100 yards a game at 99.9, but still technically that's less than 100 yards. So, and they've only allowed 7 rushing touchdowns. So, their total defense right now, again, allowing a top 5 low in touchdowns against them, both passing and running. And again, when you look at the top teams in this league, we'll talk about the Lions. The Lions' total defense is 13th in the league. They are not better than the Eagles in pass or rushing defense. Oh, they are better in rushing defense by 2 spots, but the Eagles are better in passing defense compared to the Lions by 25 spots. Again, that is in terms of yards and passing touchdowns allowed, right? Because the Lions are allowing 7, the Eagles have allowed 9, but they're allowing almost almost 100 yards less passing yards per game against them. So again, the Lions defense does not give up touchdowns, they give up a lot of yards. The Eagles defense does not allow touchdowns and they don't give up a lot of yards. You can't move the ball with them. So when it comes to the NFC and AFC right now, I think the two clear favorites who have separated themselves from the pack are on the AFC. I think it's the Chiefs and the Bills. Now, again, the Chiefs are more there because of name and reputation than what they've been doing this season. And again, they're one of the least impressive undefeated teams since last year's Eagles, where everybody knew that record was a sham and they weren't really playing anybody and they had a bunch of holes and stuff like that. This year, I will say the Chiefs haven't looked good in any of their games, and we'll talk about the Chiefs game when Casino gets back. But then right now, the Lions look like the best built team to me, but the Eagles look like the best team to me, if that makes sense. And again, you can say it's a homer pick, but I have been the most like staunch non-believer in this Eagles team and taking everything with a grain of salt. Even the year they went to the Super Bowl, I was just like, I don't know. I don't like the coaching. I don't like the defense. And then that ended up being, and last year I was like, I don't trust these coordinators at all. So I feel like again, when fans follow their team as closely as I follow the Eagles, and this goes for anybody following their specific team, you know shit that the general public does not notice or think about or realize. So I'm not saying I'm an Eagles expert. I'm just saying I pay attention to the Eagles much more than every team. So when you see obvious faults, when you see obvious things where you're just like, why is nobody talking about this? Like, again, with this Eagles team, I think the obvious is they maybe the first time in their entire franchise since what they've had Dawkins or Reggie White, they finally have Saquon Barkley, who at this moment right now, this season, is the best player at his one position. So I'm thinking of all the Eagles teams in the past, and they've never had the best player at a very significant position. Because again, Reggie White was significant at his position, and edge rushers can change games, but they didn't have the teams built around them to make those teams legitimate Super Bowl contenders. Now with Brian Dawkins, those McNabb teams were legitimate contenders, except they came into the buzzsaw of the Patriots dynasty beginning. So
Oh, we're still
now,
on the Eagles. Okay.
well, because I was waiting for you to get back, because when it comes to the Chiefs Panthers game, Casino, uh what basically my question is, what is wrong with this Chiefs team, Casino? 30 to
They're not as good as people think they are. They're squeaking out wins. You know, they're just falling on that right side of the coin every single time. Whether it's the refs, whether it's just great play by Patrick Mahomes, you know, whatever it may be, you know, scheming by Andy Reid, time management, you know, all of those things play a factor. It's not always the refs, you know, but that's what it is. They have not blown out a team all season. This was their game. I talked about it last week. This had to be the game where they finally blow a team out to prove to me they are legit. Yes, okay, they have one loss, and they're a good team. That defense is really good. Patrick Mahomes is still Mahomes. Andy Reid is still Andy Reid. But you can't play like that. You can't play to your opponent's level every single game and expect to win the big games. You know, they play to their opponent's level every single time, whether they're playing the Bills, whether they're playing the Panthers. And that's not a recipe for success. You know, will he get the job done? Sure. You know, it could totally do that. But people will always still remember that even if they go on and win the Super Bowl, but they will still remember this was not a good year for the Chiefs. They were able to get it done, but it was not a good year because this team is not built like the other teams.
Yeah, their defense is still top 5 in the league. They have a top 5 in total defense. Against the pass, however, you can pass against them, 16th in the league. You can't run against them because they're top 3 in the league. So again, I think this year more than any year, defense really matters because that seems to be what separates the really good teams from the are they good teams? We don't know, is always when you look at the defense. And we'll get to that in a minute when talking about other teams. But when it comes to the Chiefs, we say they have one of these weird lost games a year. I thought that was going to be this game. I really think it might be week 15 in Cleveland. Who knows what the weather's going to be like, as we just saw Thursday night's game where it was a snowstorm and all that kind of stuff. So if the weather's bad, they're playing unpredictable Jameis Winston. I think that might be a game they lose. And then you can pick Chargers, Texans, Steelers, Broncos as another game they lose. I still think this team loses two more, like you've said
That's
for.
I add and with that loss to the Panthers, how they did it last night or 2 nights ago, that's it shows. That's eh, it's so apparent that this team is a week. Like it was weak. I mean, the Bucks took them to OT. You know, they barely beat the Falcons off of a no call that went their way. They were a of what not taking the Ravens taking them to the overtime themselves. This is not the good team.
Yeah, and we also need to stop. I keep seeing this narrative now where it's just like, oh, I mean, the Chiefs are good. They're just saving all their plays for the playoffs and all that kind of stuff. They're just messing around and toying with teams. And then it's like, oh, really? They're toying with teams. That's why they let Mahomes get sacked 5 times. So they're toying with teams by letting their quarterback just take shots during the game. I'm sure that's it. I'm sure that's it. It's also they're toying with teams by letting the now 3-8 Panthers get 334 yards of total offense, and Bryce Young passed for more yards than Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes had probably his best game of the season, but again, it was against the 3-8 Panthers. He should have his best game of the season against them. But he threw
At the time, the two win Panther team.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, the Panthers didn't win. They
Oh,
were
that's right. You're right. Sorry, 3. My bad.
yeah.
My bad.
But yeah, Bryce Young had his best game of the season, 263 yards, 1 touchdown. He looked, and again, there were players on the Panthers afterwards being like, that's Alabama Bryce Young. And I watched this entire game. It did kind of look like Alabama Bryce Young. He looked very competent in the pocket. I don't know how successful of an NFL season he'll have, but he looked pretty good in this game.
So that was something I was gonna save for a casino's corner, but I mean, we're talking about it, and you're bringing it up. How much of it? It seems like they've opened up the playbook for him. It seems like what's their offensive coordinator's name? Darn it, I had it.
I have no idea.
Yeah. Brad Idzik. It seems like he's getting more leeway to start calling plays, and the second half of this season, it kind of just seems like the playbook's opening up a little bit. And I think maybe that's what was hindering Bryce Young is they weren't giving him room to play. So we'll see how that works out. But he did look good. He finally looked like he was somewhat competent. He played okay last week, and he played really good this week. So I'm wondering what's going on with that against a good defense. So
Yeah, again, so that's why I take the the Chiefs are just playing with teams and blah 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 and not showing anything
no,
good.
that's
It's
bullshit.
yeah, I feel like that's an excuse more than it is a what is it, recipe for what they're actually doing. But again, Panthers schedule kind of murderer's row, maybe a little. They play
No,
the Bucks twice.
they're gonna lose most of their games on the way out. They're still the Panthers. They need a lot of weapons, but at least there's some signs of life with him.
Yeah, I think you're now in what you are in with a bunch of these quarterbacks on bad teams where it's just like, can he play? Can he actually put up numbers? Can he look competent? And I think again, they have games against the Cowboys, the Cardinals, the Falcons, twice the Bucks, and the Eagles. So Eagles, I think the Panthers get annihilated. The Bucks, I think, annihilate them. But against the Cardinals, Cowboys, and Buccaneers, or against the Falcons, I mean, just again, show us something. Just don't lose those games, and you might still be the starting quarterback for next year. I mean, the Panthers have no draft picks whatsoever. So here's your chance. And then again, with the Chiefs, yeah, I would just like to see one blowout, or at least play one
I
good
don't think it's
complete
gonna.
game.
I don't think it's gonna happen because who they get to play for the remainder of the season.
Yeah. Well, now it's when the Chiefs again, this was supposed to be the easy game for the Chiefs. And then now they start well, actually these 2 weeks are the easy cuz they play the Raiders next week. But I'm assuming the Raiders is going to be a very similar game with probably lower scoring. And then you play Chargers, Texans, Steelers, Broncos, and then also Browns in there who again after what we saw from the Browns, not a gimme. But let's move on, Casino, to the Vikings Bears game, which again, I had the 4 boxes I had open in the morning when it was, I had Red Zone in one, I had Vikings Bears, I had Chiefs Panthers, and then I had the Lions game. So those are the 4 games I was hyper focused on, and then I had Titans Houston going on my phone. So those were all the games I was watching at one time. But when it comes to this Vikings Bears game, Casino, the Vikings lose 30-27 in OT after the Bears score 17 points in the fourth quarter to
Mhm.
send it to OT. But uh we said what we wanted to see from the Bears was just more Caleb Williams progression. He
And
went
he did.
32 for 47, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then also rushed for 33 yards. This, I feel like, is the Caleb Williams everybody said was going to be
This
week
was his
one.
breakout game. This was his prom. He showed up to it. They still lost, but I mean, great play by him. I was really impressed. Yeah, 32 for 47, 2 touchdowns, threw for 340. Yeah, I mean, he had 3 sacks for 20 yards for 20-yard loss. But you know what? He played well. I think he played really well.
Yeah, I think that's definitely his best game of the season outside of the Jaguars game where he threw 4 touchdowns. And then last week where he
But then,
had,
go for it. What were you say?
well, last week against the Packers when he threw for 233 yards, rushed for
Yeah,
70 yards, that was probably his I'm back kind of game. But yeah, again, I think we don't hate Caleb Williams. We just hate how overhyped he was. This is this is promising that he's
oh yeah,
getting better, but I think Bears have been done
yeah. And then
for
Sam Darnold
weeks
had a
now.
really good bounce back game as well. This is the Sam Darnold we expected to see. At least me. I mean, 22 for 34, 2 touchdowns. He looked good doing it. So yeah, no, this was a fun game. I think it was very justified going to OT. Both defenses played well. Both quarterbacks played well. I mean, the Aaron Jones, he had over another 100 yards. Chicago doesn't really have the best running game, but they did okay. But yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Weirdest thing about this game is that Justin Jefferson, the Bears kind of just held him in check. 2 touchdowns, 2 receptions, 27 yards, no touchdowns. He was only targeted 5 times. Addison and Hawkinson both targeted 9 times, had over 100 yards each. So we I guess Chicago's game plan was take out Justin Jefferson and we'll win this game. And you know what? They almost did. But as far as the Vikings go, I mean, 9-2, you look at how many teams in this league have winning records that everybody is just like, I don't know if I can trust them. I mean, 9-2 for them. The Houston Texans 7-5. You don't know what you're going to get. The Commanders 7-5, and then the Vikings and Packers 9-2 for the Vikings, 8-3 for the Packers. We watched I also watched in the afternoon that the Packers 49ers game, a game you won that I don't know if I was just living well, a game I don't know if I was just living under a rock. I feel like I was the last person on earth to find out that Brock Purdy was not starting this game. And then it's like you look up like, "Oh, what's Purdy injured for?" And then you have the coaches and the staff and the organization kind of being like, "Oh yeah, Purdy's hurt. We don't know with what. We don't know when he's going to come back. We don't really know what's going on. And it's just like, how? Like, there's no, again, like all the coaches and front office is talking about this injury as if they're like, we have no idea. We don't know what's going on. And it's like, have you talked to a doctor? Have you talked to Purdy? Have you got, how do you have no information whatsoever about
Maybe, I mean, it
starting
sounds like they
quarterback?
do have information. They're just pulling what the NHL does, and they're like, oh, he's hurt around here. Like,
Yeah.
we're not going to tell you.
Well, also, can somebody explain to me how Kyle Shanahan is such a genius, except when
Here comes
he
the Kyle
doesn't
Shanahan hate.
except when he doesn't have a starting quarterback, his teams always lose by 4 touchdowns. So if Kyle Shanahan is such a genius, he's so great, he's the best coach ever, he's right there with Andy Reid. How come he can't do it without a starting quarterback? I've
Right.
seen
And then you have McCaffrey only getting 31 yards off of 11 carries. Like,
yeah.
you don't draw up any plays for him specifically with, your quarterback is out.
So, and again, I thought Brock Purdy sucked. I thought Tua sucked. How come their teams can't win without them? How
Oh
come?
yeah, I mean, we turned our head on Tua. Like, Tua, that organization is nothing without Tua.
No.
Tua is a good quarterback.
Well, and the 49ers, like the second Jimmy Garoppolo left, they had no answer whatsoever. They got gifted Brock Purdy, went to a Super Bowl, and now it's like, oh, the offensive genius who can't stop giving up big leads also just immediately gets blown out when his starting quarterback's out. So you lose again to a Packers team that is 8-3 that I
I
think is
love when you
okay.
hate on him so much.
Dude, the 49ers fans like are again some of the most annoying fan bases in the world. And again, I know the Eagles are right there with them. So I'm not trying to be like, and I'm so great. I get it. But again, the 49ers talk about Kyle Shanahan like he's Andy Reid. He's not. Shut up.
No, Andy
Like,
Reid. Andy Reid is in our era and possibly ever the best offensive coach to ever play or to ever coach. And that's that. I mean, it's just like with Belichick. He is the best defensive coach to ever coach. It is what it is. Andy Reid is up there as one of the best coaches of all time because he's an offensive juggernaut. And Belichick was the same because of defense. Like,
well, yeah.
you
And
can't compare them because I can't compare anybody to Belichick. Like, when it comes to defense, he was and still is because he might come back into the league. He is a defensive juggernaut, and Andy Reid is just a offensive wizard. And yeah, I mean, Shanahan, whatever, man, just get the hell out of here.
it was like without his starting quarterback, I read the stat somewhere. I wish I would have saved it. It was like he's like 5-22 when his starting quarterback goes down. So it's like with Andy Reid, we saw basically this same Chiefs team with Alex Smith still be an 11 win a season team. Right with the Eagles, it was like, oh, we had Nick Foles and they're a Super Bowl contender. Oh, we had McNabb all those years and they were in the NFC Championship game every single year. And it's just like all these pieces keep being revolving. With the 49ers, it's like up, their starting quarterback gets up, and then all of a sudden their team forgets how to play defense and they can't move the ball at all. With what is it? The Brandon Allen, 17 for 29, 199 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And then again, rushing yards for a team, 44 yards. So your game plan with your
He
starting
also
running
Brandon
back
Allen also
or
fumbled
starting
it.
quarterback.
Also
Yeah.
fumbled it twice. There was so many fumbles in this game, dude. The team had 5 fumbles in this game.
Again, that's also what happened where the Eagles played the 49ers and then went to the Super Bowl. It's like all of a sudden, also what we saw from the Chiefs in this, or for what we saw the 49ers in the Super Bowl, where it was just like fumbling, just nonstop. So again, you as a coach, your team and yourself just give up without your starting quarterback. My team won a Super Bowl with their backup quarterback. So get the fuck out of here. It annoys the shit out of me. Like,
You good? You all right? We got some other things to get to. You okay?
yeah. Just the 49ers, 5-6. Good. Enjoy it. Good.
Man, I really think you hate the Niners more than you hate the Cowboys.
At this moment, I do. Like talking all that shit. And then it's just like I had to listen to a year of every 49ers person I know being like, Hurts fumbled that Super Bowl away, fumbled that Super Bowl away. And then they go to the Super Bowl and every single player on their team fumbles. And then it's just like, oh yeah, but we only gave up 10 points. And then it's like, yeah, remember where a year all you did was make fun of the Eagles for giving up a 10-point lead? You know what's more embarrassing than giving up a 10-point lead once? Doing it twice against the same team both times you play them. Like, there's
All
that
right.
meme.
And
last
move.
thing. There's that meme online where it's like,
you are not that meme. You are not the chill guy.
No, but there is the meme that always makes me laugh where it says me celebrating for another team's downfall because I prayed for it. This is that right now. This is that. 5-6 San Francisco 49ers. Enjoy the playoffs from home. You fucking all right, Casino. The next team, the game I want to talk about is what is it? I haven't done a rant on this podcast in a while. That felt good.
It was good.
Woo! That felt good. And also, boy, do I have some talkative, chatty 49ers fans at my work who are gonna hear it today. But Tennessee Titans 3-8 beat the Houston Texans 7-5. Will Levis, even in a Will Levis game where he gives up another meme-worthy pick six, he still has like his best game of the season, goes 18 for 24, 278, 2 touchdowns. Tony Pollard, we were just talking about him last episode and how we didn't know if he was good or not. He goes 24 carries, 119 yards, 1 touchdown. Again, all of our predictions this season, I feel like we've been spot on. The
Close
Texans,
to it.
Yeah, the Texans just being weird finally came to a head in this game. So thoughts on just the Texans as a whole, because I mean, CJ Stroud, 20 for 33, 247, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They also did the 49ers approach, which was we're not going to try to run the ball at all. And they gave 17 carries, 3 by Stroud, for a total of 40 yards.
Yeah.
The Tennessee Titans outrushed them by almost 100 more yards than them. So what is going on with this Texans team?
I don't know, man. It's odd, but I mean, finally we got our answer, right? We've been asking about it for over 10 weeks and finally got our answer this last weekend. The Texans are frauds. They're just frauds. You send it to me. You're like, fraud alert, fraud alert, fraud alert. And I'm like, yeah, it's 100% true. The Texans are done. I mean, could they still make the playoffs and whatnot? Yes, but they're not going to do anything. CJ Stroud just looks frustrated. Like you see him on the sideline and he just got like, he has a face of almost, it's not worse than Joe Burrow's, I hate my life face, but it's pretty close to it. The Joe Burrow, I hate my face life is just, or hate my life face is just hysterical.
Well, also when you look at this Texans team, like, remember, this was supposed to be the stretch where it was like, all their troubles are over. They got all their guys back who were injured. They have their weapons. They have Joe Mixon. And instead, it's like they got better.
Do you think CJ Stroud's the problem? Do you think he's got something going wrong?
I don't even know what it is.
See, we just still don't know. Back to that. Don't know.
Yeah,
if you have an idea, leave it in the comments. We'd love to hear it because I'm just out of ideas on this. Also was saying that, like, subscribe, do all the things, tell your friends, please do so. We're trying to get we're trying to blow up so we can continue this podcast. So keep it going. Let's go.
There you go. Oh, but yeah, Stroud on the year, 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. And again, they're losing. They lost to the Titans by a touchdown. They lost to the Lions, which you're like, oh, by 3, maybe they're back. And then the very week before that, they lose to the Jets. They lost to the Packers by 2, and you're just like, oh, maybe they're not good, or maybe they are back. And then they get blown out by the Vikings. So it's like every time you start giving, like, in your mind where you're like, Texans are back, they just lose a game where you're just like, how did they lose that game by that way? And that was this game, right? Because blew out the Cowboys last week on Monday night, and you're like, finally, all their pieces are back and they're right back to being contenders. And then lose to a division rival again in a very winnable game that the Titans, much like they do every week, Will Levis is trying to give you the game. He's trying to give you the game,
He
and
doesn't want to win. He
he
doesn't
doesn't.
want to win.
He doesn't, and yet they still shockingly win.
Man, we're
But
running long. We got to keep going, man. We still got power rankings.
last game
Woo.
I wanted to talk about, Casino. The Detroit Lions win 24-6 in a game that, again, wasn't their best performance, but a game they never felt like they were going to lose for 1 second.
Yeah, it's true. You don't want to talk about the Commanders Cowboys at all. That was one of the most. That was just one of the most insane games I watched like ever.
Yeah. Please.
No, I mean,
No, Lion Colts. The only thing I was going to say was just Lions. Again, even when they look bad, they still win by 3 touchdowns. But yeah, let's talk about the.
yeah. So it was kind of a normal game, all the way through the third. It was 10-9 in favor of Dallas. Neither team was like super impressive. And then all of a sudden, the fourth quarter, it was like, oh, okay, let's just start scoring points. So in the fourth quarter, it went field goal for Dallas, touchdown for Washington, touchdown for Dallas, field goal for Washington, touchdown for Washington, touchdown for Dallas. And then Washington had another chance to go back down, but it was just insanity. That last, I mean, I want to say like just like the last 2 minutes, but then 3 minutes, like 5 minutes. The last 3 minutes of that game was just absolutely insane. It was just insane. That touchdown, that 99-yard kickoff return from Turpin was just insane. Give credit where credit's due. That turn, that spin move that he had,
yeah,
he broke everybody's legs. Like, it broke my eyes. Like, I went cross-eyed watching that, and he just was off to the races, dude. And then they had another kickoff return touchdown to seal the game, but it was very entertaining.
Yeah. Well, also, just the description of that scoring play is Selbert kicked 61 yards from Washington 35 to Dallas 4. Turpin muffs catch, recovers at Dallas 1. Turpin for 99 yards, touchdown. So even the description of that. But then again, right after that, you're like, then the Commanders get it right back, go down the field in a minute total time, kick a field goal. Then they hold Dallas 5 plays. Dallas gains -1 yard. So they actually lose a yard in 1 minute, punts the ball back. Then in 2 plays that take 12 seconds, Jaden Daniels passes it to McLaurin for 86 yards and a touchdown. So then you're like, okay, this game's going into OT. The Commanders kicker misses the extra point, which again might just be one of those moments where you've never been more high in terms of excitement as a Commanders fan to you've never been lower as a Commanders fan in the span of 5 seconds from the touchdown to the missed kick. And then you're going like, okay, well, maybe we can do what we just did. Game's probably over. Maybe we do a miracle recovery of an onside kick. Onside kick immediately gets returned for a touchdown. And then it's like, that's kind of, it's either you want either to recover the onside kick or for Dallas to score a touchdown immediately, because then you have
Dallas
a chance.
if they were smart, you saw the entire Dallas coaching staff, they just shook their head. They should have just immediately he should go down and kneel the ball. You're done. Game's over.
Yeah. But
I will say, how tempting would that be if you're a player and you just had a one hopper into your hands, nobody in front of you?
Yeah. But again,
against a division rival, I would have done it.
Yeah, but again, it doesn't end up costing them anything because they end up winning the game. But there was a part of me that when that game was all going crazy and Dallas returned it for an onside kick touchdown, I was like, are the Commanders really now going to either return the kick or do another Hail Mary and win this game?
They got close. They did. They got into position for a Hail Mary. and they were like 5 yards shy. But it was close. Like they had another Hail Mary opportunity, and that's what I was hoping for. I'm like, please do it again. Like
Yeah.
how insane! Like I wanted another insane ending to a game and having another long overtime, just like the Vikings game. But it was good.
But a rough 3-game slide for the Commanders, again, because it was a game where I would say over half the amount of people watching that game were like, "Oh, Commanders are gonna beat Eagles on Thursday night." Like, that was a real thing where it was like, "Oh, this is the Commanders,"
And they
like, this
still
is where.
could, buddy. Just letting you know.
Well, no, I'm saying the Thursday night last week,
Oh,
where it was
yeah.
like the.
No, I'm talking about the next time they play the Eagles. I mean, they still have weapons. They still can do it. It's just, Cliff Kingsbury got to get his head out of his ass.
Well, yeah, and then this game and the Titans game were supposed to be the two bounce back games for the Commanders. They've lost to the Cowboys, and then the Titans, again, the Titans still have the number 2 defense in the entire league. So it's not like the Titans are a gimme, as we just saw when they played the Texans. And then you play Saints coming off a bye, which should be a win, and then you play Eagles, Falcons, Cowboys. So legitimately, the Commanders should only lose one more game this season, if any, because I still said the Commanders would split one with the Eagles, which I still think is entirely possible. But at 7-5, when you're losing gimme games, when you look at the playoff picture right now, which actually let's switch over to looking at the playoff picture, Casino, because when you look at them, oh, it is. Let me share the screen right now. Whoop.
And
So when you
full
look
time
at
tight.
the playoff picture, Casino, right here, oops, that made it bigger. As you look at the playoff picture, you have Chiefs, Lions. Up. Yeah, you have Chiefs, Lions, Bills, Steelers. Obviously, all these teams. Seahawks are new. I can't believe they jumped from basically out of the playoffs to now they're the number 3 seed in the
Yeah, it's
entire
gonna
NFC.
whoever's gonna win that division, man, which is just it's insane. Um, so you know that thing on you see it on the meme on Facebook or whatever, where it's like it got all of the teams ranked, and it'd be like Super Bowl contenders, and then it gets to like some funny names. It's like ass or mega ass or you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, the rankings.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So when it came to this division, it said Cardinals are going to win this division, and then next to it was uh if the Cardinals don't win this division, these 3 teams will, or one of these teams will, and it was all the rest of that division. And it was so simple and silly because all the other ones try to be silly. And it was just like, if the Cardinals don't win the division, one of these teams will. I was just like, that was it. It was hysterical to me. It's so true. Like that
Yeah.
I taught my coworker's a Seahawks fans, and he goes, I don't know if I want them to make the playoffs because he's like, they're not going to do anything in the
Yeah.
playoffs.
Well, so when you look at this, the crazy thing is you look at all these current playoff projections, and it'll say, like, with all the top teams, it'll say 99%, 99%. Even with the Ravens, it's 99%, even as a 5 seed. And then the Chargers, Broncos, it's 86 and 73%. So on the AFC side, there is a 16 and a 21% for the Dolphins for the Dolphins and Colts. Now, when you look at the NFC side, it's 99 for Lions, 99 for Eagles, and then the 3rd seed Seahawks, it's a 46% chance. So they have some of the lowest playoff probability to even make the playoffs. And right now, currently, they're the 3rd seed in the NFC. The Vikings and Packers are 98 and 91% playoff probability. So with the NFC, Casino, stake your claim in a team right now. Who wins the NFC West?
The NFC West. I thought we did it the other day.
You pick Cardinals. Are you still picking Cardinals?
I'm going to still pick the Cardinals.
I think I am too. Cardinals right now have a 51% probability to make the playoffs. Also, Buccaneers 54%. So
they're coming back. They're gonna catch them.
I think Commanders again. This was your chance to separate yourself and didn't do it. So I don't know. It's sketchy.